Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Pelican, built tough for all situations. Go to pelican.com. Yak Gadget, for all your fine kayak fishing accessory needs. Go to yakgadget.com. Eastport Marina, on the beautiful shores of Dale Hollow Lake, for all your lodging, kayaking, and fishing needs. Go to eastport.info. Now let's get this show started.
Welcome back to another episode of Feather and Fur. Your host, Brad Hurlbus, and today we are welcoming back Anthony for a little update as he's kind of changed, not pace, but not even direction, location. We'll just say location on his guiding and dog training. So I'm curious to hear the difference between where he was in Minnesota and chasing snow geese around the Midwest, and now that he's down in the South training dogs. So welcome back.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me, Brad.
I'm excited for this one because it's not very often I get to talk to someone that's from the you've been all over. Like you started out west in the Seattle area, then you started guiding in the Midwest out of Minnesota for waterfowl, and then you did the whole snow goose thing.
Right.
So I'm curious to know, like, now the difference now that you've been down south for a little over a year, right?
Yes. Yeah. Just about.
Here's the difference, like with how it is. I mean, like, curious to know what you're chasing for game, if it's ducks, quail farm, like what you got going on down there, and like the dog training differences, because I'm sure by region it's probably a little different.
Very much different. Yeah. So where I work right now is I work at a 5-star lodge, similar to like an Orvis endorsed operation, if you're familiar with that. But it's a pretty high scale lodge. I mean, we do everything from wedding events to hunting to fishing. I mean, it's a year-round deal. We start our guide season in September with doves. We do a couple big dove shoots for some larger corporate groups. Work our way into deer season. Go through deer season. We have some duck hunts on the property. Roll into quail. We do quail season for a couple months as well, and that's pretty hot and heavy, and it's preserved, mind you, not wild quail. And then after that, we get right into turkey hunting. So, we're hunting from September to about April. I mean, it's a pretty long season. And then after that, a couple months of bass fishing and moving right back into hunting season. So we stay busy for sure.
That's awesome. It's fun that the lodge you work for is able to offer so much, because it keeps it interesting. It's not the same. It's a grind, I'm sure, because guiding is a grind and dog training can be a grind, but it's not the same grind every day. Well, it might be for a month, then it's a different grind and a different grind. At least it stays interesting. Right.
And too, I mean, while we may be focused on maybe deer hunts, in November when the deer season opens up, I can still, if I have an off day, I can still jump out and go duck hunt, on the public river down here, or, go jump in on a quail hunt or something like that. So you can still mix it up, even though we may be just booked out for 6 weeks of deer hunting or something like that. So
sure, that makes sense. So I want to talk, like, I've never had someone on from the South for doves, and I've heard it's this whole little tradition experience, and like opening opening day for dove is like an experience.
Very, very much so. So I actually got my first taste of dove hunting and the tradition of dove hunting when I lived in Texas. I spent 2 years down in Texas, my junior, senior year of high school. And I mean, people were missing school for opening day, and it's just a whole different ball game. It's a really social gathering. So on opening day, at least down here in Alabama, where I'm at now, you can't hunt until 2 p.m. And so we got there, we got to the morning shoot, at 11. We got a big barbecue cookout going. People are all talking and hanging out and, getting ready. And, then you start to get your station around 2. Still, in September, it's still so hot down here. Doves aren't flying till, probably closer to 4 o'clock. So, you kind of spread out, and, they shoot some big numbers down here, that's for sure. But, you may have a shoot of 35, 40 people, surrounding, an area. So it's definitely more of a social gathering. It's a ton of fun. It's a good time to, knock the rust off the gun and shoot and, get humbled. That's for sure. Things are hard to hit, but, good time to get the dog out and work. I mean, you gotta be careful because it's so hot, right. But, good time to, get the dog back in the game and, start working again. So it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, that's for sure. And I
And
love eating that too.
And I've heard that it's an extremely social event beforehand, that you get like those big cookouts, and it seems, and from what like I've heard from like little rumors and other like little conversations I have, it seems like it's a lot of traditions. Like it seems like it's a lot of the same people year and year again that get together and have these big cookouts and like for that opening day.
Right. Yeah. You normally see like your big family event where you'll have your whole extended family come out and do a shoot like that, and then your family and friends, and it's usually the same people, from the farm across the road or what have you. And but they're so so welcoming. Like I don't know anybody really down here, but I got invited out to a shoot through some coworkers and got hooked up that way. And I mean they were more than happy to have me go out, and it's just a lot of fun. One of my favorite types of hunting, that's for sure.
And that in itself is just a unique experience, right? I mean, because you look at like the different types of hunting, a lot of stuff, even like a lot of it isn't social. Like you have big opening day deer hunting traditions, but no one, like, unless you have a kid with you or something like that, you mainly hunt by yourself. Like afterwards, it's always the social event. Like when the sun goes down, the hunt's over, everybody gets together for dinner. So it's kind of unique in itself that everybody hangs out beforehand, and that anticipation just has to be completely like it's got to be almost like electrifying.
Oh, it is for sure. And it's really fun, to kind of see, the older generation out there. I'm talking like, like my grandparents' generation or what have you. They're out there and they may not even be shooting, but they're just out there to have a good time and talk to everybody and serve food and, watch a football game. It's really fun to kind of see that and see everyone, mess around. You'll see maybe 4 generations of family out there, all together. And it's different, from I think what we're used to a little bit when my social aspect of hunting was when I was trying, say get permission on a field or something, you bump into people and it could go 50-50. They could either get angry with you that you beat them to a feed, or maybe you join with them, but you go out and there's 40 people who are just happy to see you and they're partying, and all of a sudden, let's go, shoot some doves. It's different, but it's a lot of fun.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it'd be a fun experience. I'll have to try to get down somewhere one of these days and check that out, just to see like just how crazy it is to begin with. Like it just like I just picture like people showing off shotguns, like they got a new shotgun this year, and dogs running around, and I'm sure you got puppies that are just past getting gun broke, and they're super excited for their dog to get out there. And then you got the old dogs that are laying in the shade, like, do I really got to do this in the heat? And just you get all of that mixed in.
Right. And mixed in with a lot of kids on their first hunts too. A lot of 6-7-year-old kids running around, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's cool to see it and be part of it. And if you get lucky enough to get on a good shoot as well, like I've probably been on my best dove shoot that I've ever been on. It was on opening day this year, and it was pretty phenomenal. Like I was a poor shooter, very poor shooter, but still able to get my limit in 30 minutes. Like it was pretty. I mean, it was just nonstop wave after wave, and when it gets like that, it's just a great all around experience.
I know we have doves, and I've dove hunted in Wisconsin, but I've never experienced like the wave after wave. It's like that. Like from the videos I've seen of down south, it looks just like their numbers are far superior to what we have. And I don't know about when you were in Minnesota.
Right. Yeah, I think the resident population is a lot higher. And from my experience when I would dove hunt out in Wisconsin or Minnesota, you might be able to get a good, shoot with a couple guys, first weekend. And then usually by that time, we drop into the 50s and, in the mornings and they push down. So I think, they're getting resident, they're good. They have good resident populations, and then they get a good push on migrators, and it turns into just, and they hold birds, you can shoot birds in November, just because the temperature changes. So, it's definitely a lot better down here.
That's awesome. That's just one more thing, right? Like one more experience to have. Mm-hmm. There's so many different things you can do with hunting, and you kind of touched base on this. So not to really change subjects, but running dogs in the heat, it's hard that time of year. I mean, conditioning goes a long way. Like not only that, but working dogs in hotter weather slowly, so you can start to recognize those signs. Like I used to run my lab all summer long in Wisconsin, unless it was crazy hot, but we were running the mid 80s and the 90s, but we do short times, and you learn to be able to watch your dog. So when season came around, like, you were so far ahead of the game when it came to heat exhausting, because you could just recognize like those factors when they were coming, and the dog was conditioned and everything else. So I'm curious to know, like, we've had these hot temperatures, we touched base quick on that. Like, how did, like, with training dogs down at that kennel, what do you guys do when it gets crazy hot in the summer to keep these dogs conditioned?
Yeah.
For those September hunts, and for those dove hunts come September.
Right. So, I mean, the first thing we do is, we try to work, during certain periods. So, we don't work really at all in the middle of the day. So we either get there super early in the morning or, right at dusk, and we're trying to work dogs, especially on, when I say big dogs, I mean like either transition level or just more advanced gun dogs that are running marks or running blinds or, doing some sort of field work. And now, we have obedience work, and that can be done. You can pick a shady spot and, do some leash work and, sit, heel, and all that kind of stuff. But as far as the big dogs, yeah, you got to get there early in the morning or late and work. We still try to be careful. So, a lot of people are like, well, just get your dog wet and they'll be fine. Well, a lot of times, especially if they're in shallow water, excuse me, if they're in shallow water, that water can be just as hot on the top, if not hotter, than the air temperature. And it can be pretty darn dangerous for a dog to be getting in and out and, pushing through either lunging water or swimming through shallow water. So you got to be really careful on that. You kind of look at the water temp, we look at all that. And another thing we do, so we have two facilities, but one of the facilities is temperature control. We have fans in the other, but one of them has, air conditioning, heat, and all that kind of stuff. We try to make sure that the dogs spend a gradual amount of time outside in the airing yard before and after. So you don't want to take a dog strictly, or directly from 70 degrees, start running them hard and put them back up in the cold. I mean,
sure,
we kind of do the same thing. If you go out, hard for running and come back in at 60 degrees, your body doesn't, change well, and they're wearing a fur coat. So trying to transition that, and condition them just by leaving them outside in an airing yard, of course, shaded, and they got water and all that, but just getting them used to being outside. I see a lot of dogs come off the couch, I mean, conditioning is one thing, they need to be, ran and swam and all that kind of stuff. But, they come off the couch from the, being in the AC and just sitting there, they get almost heat exhaustion.
Sure.
So you got to be, careful on that. So that's one thing we try to do. Just give them a little time before and after. One thing I try to do with the big dogs, for example, is, so a lot of guys will throw their marks. So say we're running a triple or something, or even we're just running a bunch of singles. A lot of guys will throw their marks and then throw it their watermark last, so their dog gets wet at the end and cools off. Well, I learned actually from a different podcast, Lone Dog Podcast, Young Dog Trainer. Basically, I'll run a watermark first, so then when the dog gets out and he or she's running the landmark, they get the cooling effect. So if you got a bunch of sweat on you and you're driving a 4-wheeler, for example, that air will cool you off. So same concept for the dog. So I'll try to, throw a watermark and then run the landmarks. Just little things like that to try to, make sure they're, staying safe and staying cool and all that kind of stuff. But, they still have to be, you still got to run them. You still got to swim them and in those short periods and build them up to that point.
Right. I mean, and that's all, to me, that's always been all part of conditioning throughout the summer. It's getting them used to all the warmer temperatures of the beginning of fall. It's making sure that they stay in shape. To me, I've always kind of included that as like one whole conditioning aspect, but
sure. Yeah.
Heat exhaustion's it's something that you have to be very concerned about. All dog owners should be. And if you're not conditioning your dogs in this warmer temperatures and keeping them in fitness leveled shape throughout the summer, you can't just grab a dog. And I've seen this before. You get a really hot October in the 70s, pheasant opener, and the family dog that hunts for a month every year and otherwise just sits on the couch and gets potato chips from the kids, can't tolerate that heat. Right.
Yeah. And especially too with, the upland. So when we're working with pointing dogs, you got to be really careful with that grass. If you walk through a prairie field, I mean, you can feel the humidity come off the grass. And that's another thing is, they're working extra hard, and you just got to be really careful with them running through that. I mean, it's one thing if a dog's sitting next to you on a bucket in the shade, waiting on doves to fly, but it's another thing when you're pushing them hard on like you said, a hot October. I mean, it can get dangerous quick, and if you don't recognize the signs, I've seen them get heat stroke before. I mean, they can lock up in a second. And, and you got to be prepared for it too. I mean, if you're 2 miles from the truck, I mean, no water in sight, that's scary. It's scary.
Right.
Days.
Right. So what do you do for preparation? Like, what do you keep on you for like the first signs of heat stroke? Like, for me, I normally would this is kind of old school, but I'd keep a peanut butter and honey sandwich or honey on me, because honey on the gums is a huge thing. Like, get that sugar into them, and then you can get water into them.
Yep. Like I carry honey as well. I like to use it too. I mean, granted, down here it doesn't get really that cold, comparatively, but when I was back up north, I had to put it on one of my dogs once. I remember, chasing, a duck in frozen lake and got cold, a little honey on his gums, and kind of give him a little sugar. So I'll do that. I think the big thing is just being conscious enough to not put him in a position to really get there. I mean, if I see the signs, I'm like, all right, he's going back up in the trailer. I'm going to let him down, put some water in his ears, on his chest or whatever. And, put him up. And, when we upland hunt too, we have big troughs that we have a water. We have ponds and lakes all nearby. So, if I do a lap up the field, and then I'll move down and get the dog in the water and get him running again. Another thing, kind of back to the whole dog training in the heat as well, is I won't put a dog up that's, if it's hot out, if it's humid out, I won't put a dog up that's just out of the water and wet. I'll put them on a stake out, I'll put them on a tie out. I think a lot of people, assume they're wet and they're going to cool off. Well, you put them in a confined space with no air circulation, it can get humid in there pretty quick, and it can, that can give them heat exhaustion in itself. So,
big sauna.
If you're doing a bunch of water work, right, stake your dog out and let it dry off a little bit, let it kind of air out, and then put it up. I mean, it doesn't have to be dry, but I wouldn't put a soaking wet dog, up in a kennel or a trailer.
Absolutely. So, absolutely. I mean, give them a little shade, stake them out, give them some water, let them lay down, cool off, or temperature regulate, slowly cool down. And because I mean, you put a like you said, I mean, the humidity will rise. I mean, even if you have a fan in that box, it's still hard, because I don't know about how big your boxes are, but all the boxes for my dog, they basically have enough room to turn around and lay down. I don't have giant boxes for my dog. So even if they can uncomfortably stand in there with a fan, it's still hard to get enough air circulation in there to actually get them to really dry. Right.
It's the same way here. So we have, the cable gang tie out, and we'll stake them out, or, we got tie outs that are welded on to the trailer. We'll just, hook them up real quick or something like that. And just leave them out for a second, let them catch the breath. It goes back to like we leave a dog in the airing yard after a session to kind of recuperate, so I think it's pretty darn important to do that.
Yeah. The heat changes everything. I mean, cold water safety is one thing, but like that's ice. I feel like it's far easier to recognize the cold water dangers than it is to see how fast heat exhaustion can come up on a dog, unless if you know how to truly read your dog and you are working in these kind of conditions.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. I think too, when we're running, say we got black lab, I have a black lab. She's got a really thick coat. I think, they're just built better for swimming in cold water. I mean, that's what they're made for. So, picking up ducks in cold water. And I don't know if they're necessarily made for running 85-degree heat in a quail field. Like that's a different ball game. So you really just watch them, be careful, and if they're hassling too hard, if they're panting too hard, put them up. And that too, I tell the clients that when I'm quail hunting, if the dog's panting that hard and they're breathing in and out of their mouth, they're not intaking anything in their nose. They can't smell anything. So unless they run across a bird and bump it, step on top of it and bump it, they're really not going to go point a bird or flush a bird. So they might as well just go up, so there's no sense in pushing them,
I agree. I mean, if the dog's not using its nose, I mean, if it's sucking all of its air through its mouth, it can't use its nose. I mean,
Right.
I've seen that before in warm weather with grouse, and I'm not even talking super warm. I'm talking this last grouse was in the 70s, and towards the end of like the morning hunt, I mean, the dogs, I mean, they were starting to pant. They got some heat in them, and you could just see they would we weren't finding birds as much, or they were bumping birds because they just weren't using their noses anymore.
Right. Right. And yeah, so I mean, at that point, no sense in keeping them out and pushing them harder. Just put them up, let them recuperate, and then get back after it once they can, recover.
Right. So we're training through the heat. You get quails, you get dove season first. So you touched on deer. So what are you guiding for deer then? Like taking clients back and forth to the stands? Do you guys use tracking dogs? Do you train for that at all?
Yeah. So part of this property that I have is they high fence a certain part and they have some exotics down here. And then we got, I think close to 6,000 acres of free range hunting. A lot of that is, I wouldn't say it's as much as guiding, as much as it's a lot of prep work, putting up scams, cutting limbs, doing all that kind of stuff, building shooting houses and working on that kind of stuff, plant green fields. And then, yes, we will drive them, back and forth from the scan. Obviously, we recover the gear, skin the gear, core the gear, all that kind of stuff. We have kind of messed around a little bit with tracking dogs. We don't train them. So, we don't really mess around with that at all. We had one come in and it didn't necessarily work out because we basically have another guy on contract, like on retainer, and he comes out every time if we're missing a gear. He's got two, I want to say they're curs of some sort, like a blackmouth cur or something like that. They're tracking, and they're, killers. Like, they're pretty incredible. I mean, I'm talking these dogs will track deer 13 miles through the rain and still pick up a wounded deer. It's pretty incredible to see, off a cold 8-hour cold track. Like, it's pretty silly. So we call, that man out. He's got his 2 dogs, and that's pretty much who we use.
Sure.
I think, he came out maybe 7-8 times, maybe more than that, but probably around 7-8 times over the year and picked up some deer. So, but otherwise, and that's usually during our bow season, our rifle season, they usually kill them within a couple hundred, or die within a couple hundred yards, and we can go track them ourselves. Sure.
That makes sense. I just wasn't sure how encompassed like your kennel, because you offer so much. Are you also training tracking dogs? I just wasn't sure,
No. Yeah, we focus. We're pretty much mainly, we focus on Labradors, and kind of focus on duck dogs. Really, we mess around a little bit with pointers. We do some upland work with some flushing dogs. Of course, we're in the South, so we got Boy Kings and all that. And different breeds. We do large breed obedience as well. So, we'll have your golden bugles, and all that kind of stuff, and your house pets, and work on all the obedience and all that. But mainly, we're focusing on duck dogs.
Got it. And then I know you said you have a duck season, obviously. So are you hunting ducks? Are you hunting public for ducks? Are you hunting private down there?
No. So at the lodge, it's actually, they're considered flight condition duck hunts. So we basically get a certain amount of mallards, and it's almost like a tower shoot in a way, where we get ducks to fly over. Really, so we call them flight condition duck hunts. They're phenomenal for the dogs, though. Just great. Because you can't replicate it any better. We have a pit line. Ducks are coming at you. We're calling at, they're circling, coming in your decoys. It's just great. We take a trailer full of young dogs out there, just through, once we get them through force faction, picking up some marks, we'll take them out there and you'll see them come alive, picking up, ducks. They'll see their first crippled duck, kind of stuff like that. And, it's really nice. It's a duck pond, but it's built like a tech pond in a way. So we have a pit line, point like that. So they get used to, doing land retrieves and stuff like that. So,
that's cool.
Yeah. So all my duck hunting is usually, with some coworkers or some buddies, and we're hunting public, we're hunting leased land. A lot of it's flooded timber, flooded cypress.
So how is that flooded timber? Being that you came from Minnesota,
yeah,
like, and you were out west too. So, I mean, you got to experience duck hunting over in Washington, right? It wasn't Oregon. It was
Oregon and Washington.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Both. So what's it like, cause everybody's got that flooded timber, like on their bucket list. It's on my bucket list. I haven't made it there yet.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, it's really cool. So where I'm located in southwest, south central, southwest Alabama, we're about, I'm gonna say about 150 miles off the main flyway, which is like the alluvial valley, like the Mississippi Delta, that historical flyway. We're about 150 miles off of it. So we don't necessarily get the big push of ducks. It's not necessarily like what they consider a ducky area. Now we have a lot of local ducks. We do, I mean, it takes some serious weather, but we'll get some big ducks down. But I mean, it's a lot of wood ducks, like a lot of wood ducks. And it can be some phenomenal shoots. But it's not like we're in Arkansas working mallards. I mean, we see mallards, you'll work them, but it's not like that's what you're killing with green. So it's a little different. Wood duck shooting in the timber is about as humbling as it can get. I think it's harder than dove hunting. Like, I really do. It's, I mean, they come in so hard, so fast. A lot of times people will throw out maybe a half dozen decoys and a spinner, maybe. Sometimes people won't even throw out decoys. If they want in there, they get in there, depending on how big the hole is. And I mean, it can be super fun. And a lot of times it's 20 minutes of just nonstop loading your gun, trying to shoot, missing everything. It's pretty crazy. But it's really fun. Some of the prettiest locations I've ever hung at. There's a river called the Tom Bigby River that runs through where I'm at, and we hung at buddy's lease land, and it flooded over, and it was like 6 inches of just splash water. And I mean, we were hunting our muck boots, and they were bombing in on us, and it was pretty incredible. It's harder on the dogs, hunting that style, that timber, and all that. But it's a lot of fun. I'd recommend it if you get a chance to come down. I still love my classic, like prairie pothole region, shooting puddle ducks like that. But mixing it up like this year was pretty darn fun. That's for sure.
I want to experience that. Like, I want to experience the birds. Like, I've had miniature timber hunts, right, where I found pockets of flooded backwaters off of the marsh. That's all timber, and you get a good acorn crop, and the wood ducks just pile into there. And you're right, like, no decoys are needed, like, at all, because you're just going to screw it up if you put them out there, because that's where they want to be, and they're going on that tree, on that water edge, grabbing all these acorns. And when you hit it right and there's a flight down, it's just incredible with how fast they come in, whistling, and
yeah. The one thing that's really difficult, though, I mean, and it's like, hunting wood ducks anywhere, is they don't, I mean, you can't decoy them into a kill hole. I mean, sometimes you can get them come in and, directly into a kill hole, but a lot of times they'll come in, turn, they'll move and switch and all that kind of stuff. And so when they're coming into an area like that, and you just got 4 decoys out, a spinner or whatever, I mean, they may suck into the spinner a little bit, but, a lot, I mean, you're never shooting them in the belly, really. I mean, they're turning, they're coming sideways. They may hit the water, and then you see them, and then they pop right back up. And we had a shoot on the last day of hunting season down here, where, I mean, it was pretty incredible. I think we shot like 13, 14 all Drake wood duck. I mean, it was pretty crazy, but they were coming in so tight, almost too tight, where I still remember one hit the end of my barrel when it came down, like its wing hit the end of my shotgun barrel. Like, you're, even if you're shooting a cylinder choke, like it's still too tight,
Right.
So
you need the old spreader choke.
Yeah. I mean, you're almost better off trying to hit them with a stick. Like, it was, but no, it's a lot of fun. I definitely want to get back up into, Arkansas and try to, work mallards. I worked a couple groups, and it's a ton of fun, but to do it consistently would be, I'm definitely no expert, or you can say I've really done it, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I've heard. Now, one thing I have heard is that you, like, the calling, by the time, like, the guys calling down there are just way, like, it seems like it's got, like, you need to be a good caller up here, but it seems like down there you need to be an excellent caller.
Yes. So, we talked about dove hunting tradition. Well, duck hunting tradition down here, I mean, that's just a whole different ball game too. And I think it stretches. I've hung in, southern Missouri, into northern Arkansas, And down here up on the Mississippi and Texas, and Southern culture for duck hunting is serious. I mean, they take their football serious and they take the duck hunting serious, and they don't mess around. So, I think overall there's more. I know the license sales in Minnesota is higher, but it seems like everybody and their brother out here is duck hunting, and I would say the dog work is better down here. There's everybody and their brother has a duck dog, and when you have more, it just brings the standard higher.
Sure.
Everybody can blow a duck call, and and everybody's got a mud motor with bow, so it gets real difficult trying to hunt them. And you can hear on public, just hail calls going off everywhere, and but that's what makes it fun. I kind of like the competition aspect of it, and I like hunting public still, and working for it, and finding the hole like that. And I mean, that's why I like the little timber hunting experience I had down here. Is when you scout, I mean, you can find an X up there and find a pond, but it can be a big pond, and they can be spread out, and they can be mixed. Ducks and geese, which is a lot of fun. It's still my favorite, but it's really cool when you get to go in and see a 10 by 20 yard hole, and it's like, that's where they're going to be. I can shoot all the way across it.
Sure.
I mean, that is pretty special to be able to go in and really find. I mean, that's a true X, right?
Right.
So
right.
Makes scouting a little more interesting and a little bit more direct. Now, other people may find that though too, and all of a sudden you're racing to it. But that's the interesting part.
So I'm assuming, like, from that explanation and from the amount of people, it's got to be hard to find those little gems in on public, because I'm sure there's someone out there always scouting. There's someone out. It's hard to always go harder than the next guy, right? Like, you can put in a lot of time, but we have full-time jobs, right? You get a construction worker that's laid off for a little bit. Like, are you competing against things like that, or competing against guys that work third shifts, so they're out there in the morning scouting? And
right. Or you're competing against skate employees that spend their time on that river system. That's when that gets really difficult. But I still think there's there's still your fair weather hunter aspect where people still tail off, and for me, their cold is a nice summer's day. So when it got, we had a snowstorm down here, and I was like, let's go duck hunting, and people are like, no, you're crazy. I'm like, no, like, it's time we go. So you still get your fair weather hunters and people that don't necessarily want to go out, or deer season comes in, they'll start deer hunting a little bit more and all that kind of stuff. So you can still make it work. I don't think it's as different. I mean, you see a little bit more pressure. I don't think it's as different as what I would see up in Minnesota, or or what you see on the river down there, on the pools and all that. So it's not terrible. You still got to put your work in. You're still going to get beat to a spot, or you still may get to a spot and maybe a bust, and the guy next to you is killing them. I mean, it's public hunting all around.
Right.
But I think if you put your time in and work, I mean, I think you'll be rewarded eventually. Just keep hammering on it, and I think you'll eventually, get some good shoots and all that.
I mean, scouting's so key. I mean, it really is. I mean, even up here, I mean, yeah, you have, and as much up here, just different, right? Because down there, you're looking for these tiny little holes for the X, so you're trying to eliminate water, and it's the same up by us. But if you're hunting the Mississippi, I mean, you got multiple pools, like you have just tons and tons of backwater, and if you're trying to eliminate water, there's a lot of water to eliminate.
Right.
So I mean, you got to put the time.
You're willing to get out of the boat and walk a little bit too. I mean, that's how we found a few holes down here. Too. I am fortunate enough where a lot of my coworkers, there's not as much public land down here as there is up there. I mean, you can go pop out on WMA, with a little pond and still have a good hunt. Down here, there's some wildlife management areas, but not nearly as many. So what you hunt are the major river systems that are managed by the feds. So you're trying to that's really your corridor. The rest of the land down here, a lot of it's leased land or just private owned family land.
Sure.
So I was fortunate enough, I have good buddies that got different locations that we can go, and you're still scouting. You still got to find 2,000 acre property. You still have to find where the X is, but at least that nobody's going to beat you there if you can find it. So
sure, that makes sense. So do you do blind draws and all that on the public land down by you? Like, because I know, like,
no, this is straight up just boat ramp and let her rip.
Got it. Get there earlier than the next guy and get out there.
It's Corps of Engineers land, so it's not U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. I get blind draw stuff in Missouri, but I haven't done any down here. They had that out in Oregon as well, which National Wildlife Refuge, they'll do blind draws. But this is Corps of Engineers, and they didn't have any, so you just get there early and scout and try to beat someone to it.
That's how I'm used to it, right? I mean, you can get the launch as early as you want. I know, like, for opening a duck, I know guys that go out Friday night and camp on islands and sleep in their boats. I mean, and then I've seen videos of like different areas down south, I don't even know where all these guys are stacked up at the boat ramp waiting for the wildlife official to open the gate and find out, like, okay, you were here first, you can go, and like shuffling them through. I'm like, well, I guess you still got to get there early, but does like sleeping in your truck count then? Like, do you have to be awake?
Yeah.
Or as long as you pull up there first, are you good to go? Like,
yeah. Down here, there's no gate or anything, so you can just get out there and sleep in. It's kind of like what you're used to, or I've done that on the Mississippi too. Pool 3 or 4, and you can go out. We'll go camp on an island, and hunt after that. But it's tough, but I don't think it's really any different than. Too different. I mean, different terrain, different habitat, but still same principles. Find food, water, and corridor for flight patterns, and you'll find ducks. So
that's true. And then even if it looks ducky and has the food in the water, it doesn't mean they want to be there.
Right. Yeah.
I can't count how many times I've got burned on that one. Where like, oh, the ducks are going to be here, and you scout it all season long, keeping an eye on it, and the ducks just never show. It's like, what's wrong with this area? Like,
right.
So do you do the flight patterns for the ducks, that type of stuff? What's the quail like? I mean, I know it's pen raised. I'm assuming do you have your own pens? Do you raise all?
No. So we get them from a breeder over in Montgomery, Alabama.
Okay.
We do have a big flight pen that will keep them. So if we have, a lot of what we do is corporate groups, and so we have maybe 30 guys come at a time, and so we'll split up hunts and all that kind of stuff. So if we're ordering 3,000 quail or something, we have a big flight pen we can release them into during the week, and then catch them and place them as we go. If they stay in those crates, they don't either survive or they don't fly well after. So our quail hunts are pretty awesome. I think our boss believes in having a lot of extras out, and so we'll plant quite a bit. We may charge a little bit more, but overall, I mean, we're shooting more birds than a lot of people. Rather than going to your scan preserve where you pay per bird and maybe you get 6 quail out in the field, we may have 100 out. So
wow.
We plant quite a few quail. But that way too, we work on habitat management. I mean, we manage like we do for wild quail. So we keep them in there. We keep them. There's only so much you can do about avian predators and about coyotes and bobcats and all that. But we trap and predator hunt. But they're still going to get a few. And but we do quail management. So we have our native grasses. We got our big pines and all that kind of stuff. So they stay pretty good, and they hold in there pretty good. So we've had several hunts where we can bring 5-6 guys, still shoot 70 birds in an afternoon that have not been hunted for 2 weeks. So
wow.
I guess you can consider it pre-release. Some people
hate
the term pre-release. We can get out there and hunt pre-release birds, and they jump. Some of them get covied up and jump like wild birds. I mean, they'll jump 200 yards away. They hear the trailer coming, and they'll be gone. So towards the end of the season, they get pretty smart. That's for sure.
That's cool, because then it's almost more like you're hunting wild birds.
Oh yeah. And then you got to get kind of strategic on how you're gonna, if I've seen this covey, if I hunt that field 4 days in a row and I've seen that covey bust out the back end, maybe I'm gonna sneak in around, or try to work a different wind direction, or pace a blocker up, or something, and try to figure them out. But yeah, so our quail hunts too, we do very southern style, where we got pointing dogs, and then we have flushing dogs. So We work in tandem. That's my favorite part. I love the dog work, obviously. So
Right.
I love to quail hunt, and we run labs as flushing dogs, and so they walk at heel next to us, and then we got up to we usually run 2 to 3 pointers at a time in front of us, and we have a mix between setters and German Shorthairs.
Okay.
We run them out front, and we cover some ground. It's pretty fun. I mean, it's a lot of fun to get after them, and I love point and dog work. I mean, our dogs are pretty experienced. They may see 6,000-7,000 birds a season, so
that's a lot. And birds teach dogs.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt about it. Birds teach dogs.
Right. And I mean, that's pretty much it. Is we will break them, and then we call or come, and that's really it. And then they learn from the older dogs how to quarter, and we just throw them out there and hold point, and I mean, they figure it out. They just run into so many birds. They may bump a few, but we're not worried about it. We got so many, and usually, the hunters just love seeing the dogs, out there running. So it's just not a big deal. So, they may bump a few. The young dogs will, but we had a young dog. She was 2 years old this year, first real hunt season this year. And I took her a lot, and I think 2 weeks in, she had hunted for 2 weeks straight, and all of a sudden it was like, boom, clicking, and she was pointing birds at 30 yards away. I mean, it was and staunch too.
Sure.
I'm sure the point and dog guys out there are going to tell me, complain a little bit, I guess, but they're not. They hold staunch point, but we hunt with flushing dogs too, so they get a little loosey goosey at the end, and they'll when you got a flushing dog running by them, we don't require them to be steady to wing shot and fall and all that kind of stuff. So they're hunting dogs first and foremost. So if they're holding point, we can get in there and flush a bird and get a good flush, and that's what we care about. So
right. And for the style of the hunt that you're doing, I mean, it's different. I mean, if they hold a point and allow you to get your clients into position for their shots, and then you can release your flushing dog. And once that flushing dog gets there, if they break at that point, like they've already done their job. Now you kind of have 2 flushing jobs, right? I mean, that's
And plus too, I mean,
is that perfect? Is that perfect pointer work? No. But it was perfectly steady up until that flushing dog got there and everybody was there. I mean, for that style, that is perfect. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And so, and for us, I mean, even dare I say, like if we had them at wing shot fall, it'd probably be a detriment. I mean, just because of we bust a covey of 15 and they drop 6. I mean, it would just take. I mean, I understand the argument why to do it, and I totally get it. But in our situation, I think it would just take too long to and then send the dog, recall for the retrieve, and then go pick up. I mean, we're the hunters want to shoot first and foremost, and if they see a dog just go on point, I mean that's what they like. They don't really care about releasing the dog after. So yeah, it works for us, and so they stay pretty tight that way. They don't seem to break in on birds or anything like that. So that's all we care about.
I mean, I see the safety argument for having it steady the shot. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get all that. But if you're using flushing dogs as well, I kind of feel like that whole safety argument of making sure the dog doesn't get by the birds gone, because you're running a flushing dog. So you have to really have all those safety dog flushing, like don't shoot low flying birds, this, that, and other thing. Like you have to follow all of those rules. So I'm sure I know true pointers will be like, that's not a finished dog. But at the same time, like it is finished for your style. But you know what I mean? Like
Well, and two, like, for the flushing dog work, so like I run my 2 dogs as flushing dogs for me. And, I require, I don't know if I say I require, but I trained for study the flushing shot with them because of the testing aspect.
Sure.
I want to go run in an upland test or an HRC upland, or, hopefully one day if I get to run in the Grand, HRC Grand, I can, be able to have them study a flush. Do I require it every time? No, because, there's times when, and I'm sure people are going to, yell at me for that, but, there are times when I don't think it is advantageous. There are times when it definitely is. But when we're getting some thick cover in the cattails, and I mean, we do pheasant hunts. We release some pheasants too, and we hunt pheasants in some of our wetland areas. And if we're in the cattails, and I tell my dog sit, she comes up to my knee, for example. She's short. She's not going to be able to see or mark where that bird falls. I would rather have her push through, drive, flush the bird, and go retrieve it that way. Don't get me wrong, they still know what whistle sit means. So if they get into an area, I can boom, tweet, sit, and have them sit if they're chasing. And there are times too where we hunt some of our quail foods are pretty short grass. We cut lanes and all that. If it comes out, where the bird's low, I can tweet and have her sit, and then shoot them guys and have them shoot and then release my dog. So yeah, I mean, again, is it perfect? No, but it's what we need it to be. So yeah,
I think that this is a whole another rabbit hole when we talk about what's a finished dog, right?
Right. Yeah. Completely.
But I feel like, I mean, depending on where you hunt in the country, it could sometimes change what the idea of a finished dog is going to be, or depending on your situations and other things. I know there's what we have is standards, but that doesn't necessarily. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't follow the standards, but I'm saying there should also be exceptions too, is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. And I know in the lab world, and I know it is in the pointer world as well, but I think I can touch on the lab world a little bit better. That the whole schedule flush argument on the upland work is a very hot topic, and I've had people argue with me, and I'm just whatever you choose is fine. I mean, you're the one hunting your dog. Do what you want to do. I mean, that's all my argument. But for me, I require it because of testing. I like the control, even when we're wild bird hunting, because you can stop them before they cross the road, or you can, do all. In certain situations, they do mark far better if you're hunting shorter cover. But I think, if they're in the cattails where most Midwesterners pheasant hunt with the lab, I venture to say a dog that flushes through and can push through and mark a bird by chasing. I mean, I think that'd be a little bit more advantageous in general.
Right.
Again,
and we're speaking generally.
They're saying that, but in general,
Right. Right.
But it is, I will say, it is pretty though when you get a dog in, boom, sits right when the bird flushes and call their name. It is pretty, that's for sure.
It is that is agreed. I mean, the pretty part is the training that went into it to me.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of work. That's a lot of repetition. That's a lot of consistency. That's a smart dog as well to be able to handle that type of excitement and reel it back and know this bird flushed, I have to sit.
Right.
I loved my lab wasn't that. He was hard charging, and I never even tried to train for that, to be honest. But part of what my excitement was watching him get birdie and just being on that bird and just
right.
all of that. And I know some people might say, oh, that's dangerous. I get it. I get that. But watching him react to that bird, getting super birdie, getting all of that to me was all of that kind of was part of that excitement, and watching him now
exactly. Yeah.
Sitting on the flush. I mean, that's awesome. That's great. That's a high level of training. I see the safety aspect, especially around new shooters, kids just introduced in or adults just being introduced into shooting. It's really easy to shoot a low flying bird. I get that. I get the safety aspect but for me solo, I just loved watching him get under a pine tree and that bird busts out and he's right there. Where'd it go?
Right. I completely agree. I mean, I would say my dog's best, especially my male dog, Henry, is some of his best pheasant retrieves. I did not require him to be steady at that time. And, I either dropped a leg on a pheasant, like we've all done, and it sails, a couple hundred yards, and watch him plow through. I remember in a snowstorm, he was running 300 yards, went and picked up a bird. And I'm if I probably make him sit right there, would he have picked that bird up? Probably not. I mean, you couldn't see past 30 yards because of the snowstorm.
Right.
So, situations like that, I think it's very, and, not to get too technical or down the rabbit hole, but I think as far as, the control aspect goes, so when we're hunting the way we hunt and our flushing dog is at heel, next to us. I mean, I require heel means, their right ear is on my left knee, right? Like they're not ahead, they're not behind, they're not switching sides or off to the side or anything like that. And so I require that control. When my dogs too have learned, they can see when a dog goes on point, and you'll see their ears perk up and they'll kind of jump forward a little bit, almost like they're about to go like run a blind or something like that. It's pretty funny how they cue in on that. But I require them, as soon as they lock in and you see that pointing dog, I immediately sit, and that way I know where they're at. They're under control. I can look around because I got 4 other guys I'm trying to guide. So I'm telling guys to step up in a line, get even, watch your barrels, watch your safety. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts going upland hunt. So being able to have control, and then I send my dog in like a retrieve. So they know exactly, like I said, they cue in on where the point is. Well, they know to run to the up the nose of the dog and into the bush in front, right? So I mean, and that took time and repetition to learn. But I cue him in, so it's Henry, and then boom, they like a mark, and he'll run in and push in behind the dog and flush the bird. But I think having that control on the side and having a controlled flush, maybe I don't require him to be steady. I still think that is beneficial, because it's not like he's just out and wild. But even when they're quartering, I mean they have to go find and produce game. But I think just being under control is just more important. Even if he's like you said, like your dog's out there in front of you. I mean, he's no good if he's 200 yards away from you to flush that grouse, right? So he's under control within gun range, right? And you can still maneuver him how you want. So I think that's very important, and kind of a little miss aspect that people don't necessarily recognize is how is your dog going to flush that bird? So
right. And I was actually talking to he was on the air, James. Oh, good Lord, Hart. Now I can't remember his last name. Sorry, buddy. He runs pointers and flushers out west, and his flushers sit on a point.
Okay.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool, because that's a different level of training as well. Yeah. He says a lot of it actually comes naturally, but it's training as well, where like because the flushers will be running within flushing range, and if they see a pointing dog go on point in the distance, they'll sit.
Right.
I'm like, that's kind of cool. That's another way of doing it. I'm like, that's kind of cool, actually.
Yeah. I've seen guys too, out, actually it was out west. He was a guy out there where he walks his dog at heel as well. But he doesn't send them into flush. So he specializes kind of in sharp tail. So it's a lot shorter cover, dog can mark far better in a field like that. But as soon as that dog goes on point, sit, and then the hungers move up. And I've done that too in certain situations where, it works. And that way, the dog's behind you, it has to be under great control. I mean, you have to know the dog's going to sit, not break, and get in the mess. But, I'll give my dog a hard sit, move forward. We may go in and flush the bird, and that dog can mark far better from behind you, being able to see where the bird. So, that can be really useful as well. I just think being able to control your dog, is the important aspect.
Agreed. You can't have a dog that's just running around wild, chasing birds at 200 yards, like especially a flushing dog we're talking right now. You can't have them chasing birds at 200-300 yards. You're never going to get a shot. Right. You're going to be that guy out in the field screaming, whatever, Zippy, come back here, Zippy here. Dog starts yelping because they're getting hard on the collar. The dog doesn't know why you're getting hard on the collar, because he doesn't have recall. Let's be honest here. If the dog had recall, it wouldn't be out of range to begin with.
Right. No, and honestly, that honestly ties all the way back into what you talk about your summer conditioning. It's like, get your dog off the couch and work it. You want you're not going to jump off the couch and go run a marathon and do well. It's like you need to. Your dog's not going to do that either. You need to. I'm not saying you need to work your dog every day and do a bunch of retrieves every day or run blinds every day, but like a couple times a week, get your dog out and do a little refresher and then exercise it. And I think people will be a lot happier. I see a lot of guys on opening day get really, really mad at their dog, for stuff that could have been fixed, for sure.
Right.
So.
I mean, obedience is never done. Like obedience always can be polished. Yeah, they know sit, but you can always continue to polish that sit. They know they have recall. It can always continue to be polished. Whoa, heel, place, all of that. I mean, can always be polished.
Yeah, and I mean that's what I love about dog training too. Is it's a revolving door, revolving season in the sense of, and I try to keep my dogs like a pretty high standard when we hunt. But I mean, let's be realistic. I think we all, get a little sloppier. I think all the dogs get a little sloppier coming out of a hunting season. Or just even the fact. So, like, say I hunt we have a month full of quail hunts. Well, all of those marks, none of those marks are going to really be farther than 40 yards. Very short, 60, 80 yard blinds. So we got to go back. We got to stretch them back out. We got to, start doing bigger marks, bigger water marks, running water blinds. So it's always kind of revolving and changing, and you just you work on one thing, something else is going to kind of fall off. So you always are, getting back in your training and just working on different stuff. So I have a 5. Well, yeah, she just turned 5, and I got a dog turning 6, and we still train. Granted, it's part of my job, but we work. I'd say they get trained about 5-6 days a week. And then they get hunted almost every day for, 5 months of the year. But, we're still learning, we're still working on stuff. And like I said, we'll go from a hunt test season to the hunt season, and they're pretty tight, and then they'll get loose back up, and then their line bangers and the holding blind are bad, back into hunt test season. And so, I mean, that's just training, and it is what it is. But, that's why I like it,
It's fun. I mean, it's always fun. Like, and every dog's got its own personality. They learn different. I mean, it's never the same, which is what makes it fun.
Right. Yeah. And that, that is, and, I've been fortunate. I'm not an experienced dog trainer by any means. I work for a kennel, and I train dogs, but it's, compared to the guys I work for that have been doing it for 20 years, I mean, they can read a dog before it even makes the mistake. I mean, they'll be like, oh, you're going to have to correct it here, and,
sure.
I'm by far a novice, and it's like the more I start, put my hands on more dogs, the more I realize how little I know. It's you think you got to figure out with one dog, and then all of a sudden you get to 5, and you're like, wow, and different breeds, different dogs, different temperaments. It's a whole different ball game. And
different training styles
they come from. So we get them at 6 months old, right? So who knows how their upbringing was. If they were even introduced to a bird. I've had dogs that haven't been on a leash at all. So we spent a couple of days just putting a leash on them,
Right.
So just a bunch of different stuff, but that's what's fun. You get to mess around, you get some, some really fun dogs that really like to go, and it's a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I mean, you're out there doing what you want to do. Like, you're out, like you found a career path that works for you and it provides for your lifestyle. You get you're training dogs, you're hunting, like that's almost like the American dream, right?
Yeah. And it's, it's great. And I try not to take it for granted. It is, I'm not going to lie.
But it's a grind.
It's a grind. Yeah. I get, like I talked about, I remember on the last podcast, like it is incredibly tiring. You get to 6 months of hunting, and everyone gets snappy at each other at the end of the season, and you're just tired and all that. Some days you just have some bad days. All your dogs are just not doing what you want to do, but you just put them up and get them back out the next day. And it helps me. Try to I gotta make myself calm down and just relax, because it's like just take a step back. And I mean, I still fail at it all the time. I get mad all the time, but it's you gotta try to take a step back and look at it and say it's just a dog, and work on it that way. But yeah, it's it's a grind, and the stress too behind working with dogs is these are other people's. I think of how I love my dogs, right? But these are other people's babies, right? Like they love them, and they're trusting them with you. And I mean, they could get out in front of you and step on a stick, and I mean, what can you do? So the stress of kind of working with live animals is isn't necessarily all what it's cracked up to be, but it's great, but has some downfalls.
It's not all perfect, right? I mean,
it's not all perfect. I mean, you're always worried. A dog can just get sick for some reason. They just have some innate something going on, or they, like I said, they hurt themselves getting, stepping on some sticks or
Right.
something like that, and they can just, you got to take them to the vet, and you just worry about them. You just worry about them all the time. Someone else's baby, so you want to make sure you take good care of them.
And that's kind of what you hope for, right? When you if you drop your dog off at a kennel, you want to hope that they treat them as good, if not better, than their own dogs.
Right. Yeah. And we get a lot of people from a very diverse demographic of dog owners. So we try to really cater to everybody. Some people are very old school mentality. Their dog lives outside and it's a farm dog, and that's that. We get some that are dogs sleeping in the bed, and it's $3,000 dogs. It's like but we treat them all the same. If they got an issue, take them to the vet. Look at them, and we weigh them, and work on all that kind of stuff. Weekly. So just trying to take good care of them, and they do crazy things. I mean, they'll run into a fence.
Right.
You just never know.
It's still hunting. There's still variables. It's training. I mean, nothing's ever guaranteed in any of it. So,
right,
it makes things a little difficult, and I can see that would make much more added stress.
Yeah. But when it's great, it's great. Like I always tell people, and my boss who I work for now, he told me when I got my first dog, he said, dogs in your first hunting season, they'll make you look like a hero, make you, do things that will make you so proud. And then 20 minutes later, they'll make you want to pull your hair out. And I don't think there's something that I've really found to be truer when it comes to hunting dogs, especially young ones. So,
because everything will click, and everything will be like perfect. And you'll be like, we've been working so hard. And then the next day you'll run the same thing. And it's like, they forgot everything. It's like, what happened? Like, how did we just go from perfect? Like, not even want to say the word perfect, but how did we go from like this to, I feel like we haven't even started training for it today.
Yeah. And, I got a 5 and 6-year-old dog, and, they hunt a ton. They picked up lots of birds, and they train all the time. And I'm not going to say they're phenomenal. I don't like to brag on my dogs too much, because they'll make a liar of you quick. But they, I would say they're pretty solid, and they do stuff every now and then. I mean, they're consistent. I mean, they're in their prime, right? So they're pretty consistent. But every now and then I'll look over, I'm like, what are you doing? Like what just happened? Like, we've done this 1,000 times, and they're like, not today, and but they're dogs, they're not robots. So
right. That is very true. Well, I'm going to give the last couple minutes, like always, to you. Anybody you want to thank? You want to shout out the kennel you work for? Any of that stuff?
Yeah, Black Belt Retrievers out of Demopolis, Alabama. We're here in South Central Alabama. Brandon Smith, Mark Beisler are the owners, so give them a shout. If you're down here in the South, real good guys. Like I said, like 20 years of experience. They've each had 20 years or 40 years between them. They ran dogs to highest levels in the Grand and all that kind of stuff, and produced very solid gun dogs and all that. So get a hold of them, and good guys. So I would get a hold of those guys if you want to dog train here down in Alabama.
Awesome. I'll get the link from you, and I'll drop it in the description for anyone that is interested. That way they can find it real easily.
For sure. Yeah.
And then I'll drop your information on Instagram or wherever else.
Okay.
But for everyone that's out there, why don't you tell them your Instagram account again, just in case?
It's Anthony Outdoors. I think it's Anthony _Outdoors. Honestly not too sure. I gotta look real quick. But you can find me on Instagram. That's where I'm at mainly. I do a lot of post all really about my guiding and dog training and all that. So you get to see some cool stuff, some cool dog work. I try to post real stuff, not all the dogs, all the big dogs running big marks and all that. I try to post, dogs messing up and doing different stuff. So yeah, it's Anthony _Outdoors _ and you'll find me.
Perfect. And I'll toss that link in the description as well for everyone, so you can easily find it and give Anthony a follow.
Sure. Well, thank you. I appreciate being on here, Brad. I really do.
I mean, it was great talking to you again, getting a little follow up and learning how the South is different than what the Midwest and the West Coast was, these traditions and the different training techniques that you're kind of dealing with for like in the hot summer months. And even like compared to here, it's just hot year round down there. So it was nice to like hear like how some of the stuff is the same, but like you have just slightly different techniques to really deal with the heat. So.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. To all the listeners, thanks again for tuning in to another episode. And until next time, keep chasing that experience.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode here on Paddle and Fin. Be sure to drop a 5-star rating, a thumbs up, or smash that subscribe button on any platform you're listening in on. Be sure to check us out on Waypoint TV, waypointtv.com. Make sure you sign up for the Fantasy Kayak Fishing League at paddleandfin.com/fantasy. You could support this show through Patreon, patreon.com/paddleandfin. Don't forget to check out the website, paddleandfin.com. Catch us on YouTube. If you got a question, comment, or want to see a future guest on the show, be sure to email us at paddleandfin@gmail.com. Shout out to our show supporters, Yak Gadget. You can check out all the fine kayak accessories at yakgadget.com. Pelican Professional. For all your cases, coolers, and lighting needs, go to pelican.com. Rocktown Adventures, your Midwest premier paddle sports destination. Go to rocktownadventures.com. Eastport Marina, the beautiful destination on Dale Hollow Lake. If you're looking for lodging, kayaks, kayak accessories, or anything fishing related on the beautiful Dale Hollow Lake, go to eastport.info. And Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and fill your tackle boxes today.